Well, hello there, I'm Christine and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about the energy of our houses through the eyes of numerology, and I just thought that would be something different to do. I've got a few notes here to help me, so you'll have to see how I go as I'm talking away at you, because throughout our lives most of us live in many different places and spaces. We have our childhood home. For me, my parents moved around because my father used to buy service stations and build them up and sell them. So I went to 14 schools and I won't say 14 homes because some of them we'd end up back at the same property, but because he would buy a service station. But 14 schools. Interesting. So that's a lot of homes just with that alone, and then there's the homes. So we also have the homes when we go, the rooms when we go to university, or for some boarding school perhaps. Our first apartment, or as we say in Australia, our first flat or unit, our first home, and so many more places that we visit when we go to visit an auntie or cousins or grandma, and we stay a little bit of time there. You know, like when you go to grandma's house even, and it just feels right. So we never forget the homes that we have lived in or visited a lot, or their energy. Energetically, these homes we have occupied have actually been part of us, and often soon after we move into a home, it sort of takes on our energy a little bit, or we pick up, or when we visit we can pick up on energies, because there's this I believe there's this interrelationship between personal energy of the homes that we've been and visited, spent time in or lived in, and for me that energy became very clear to me in the 70s when my parents we moved to a town, which was a service station deal, and we lived in a nice rental home while a house was being built, and we moved into that new home, and then life seemed to change. So sometimes when we move into properties, it's about a life-changing moment. For some people, they find in certain properties when they think back, there was major life changes happening. I also decided then around my teens that I would observe a lot of this through numerology, because in this particular town I was living with, it was a country town, and you started to look at the houses across the road and the type of people that were living in them and things like that. And I've just always been a watcher and a looker and an observer and a reader of books too. So in 1976, I came across a book written by Carl Jung about memories, dreams and reflections, where he recounts the powerful symbolism of his house and that symbolism and memories that had held for him. I also read another book in 2000, which I wish I had the title, and it was all about how when we actually move from homes, we grieve them. And I sort of thought about that a little bit. And one of the properties we lived on was a rural property. And I was only talking with my husband the other day. I can't go back to that because it's now flooded with water and a dam. And that's the sort of funny energy to experience as well. Getting back to numerology in houses, most people are unaware of the effects the number can have on a house, and also the energy, as I said, is when we visit them. Thoughts, ideas, lifestyles, personality traits are all part of vibrations that get set up by us in the home, and possibly vice versa, or previous tenants. Maybe houses can hold energies, well they probably can, I truly believe they can, hold energies of previous tenants, and that's why we do smudgings and things like that to change enemies. So if you find that a house number doesn't sort of support you, you can always change houses like people can change. You can, as I said, you can do your smudgings, you can shift furniture around to shift energy, and you can also maybe change things about yourself and vice versa. It's all energy working and interworking together. To find your home's numerology, and I will put this in the notes at the bottom so you can work it out, but all you have to do is add up the digits of the street address until you come to a single digit. For example, now I'm really hopeless at maths. I'm a more humanitarian type person in the brain. So, for example, 134 Jones Street becomes a house number 8 because you add 1, 3 and 4, which equals 8. If you live in a unit, flat, townhouse, and the unit number, you add the unit number together, which means you then go 6 for the unit, 204 for the house of Jones Street. So that would be 6 plus 2 plus 0 plus 4 equals 12. And then you reduce that to a single 12 to that single unit, which would become a 3. If you happen to live in a unit which is 6A, 204 Jones Street, you've got the 6, you've got the 1, and 1 comes from A. I will stop here. I'll do the thing and then I'll go to the next bit because I might just confuse myself and everyone else as well. Plus you go 2 and 0 and 4, which comes to 13. You add the 1 and the 3 together to make 4, so you have a house number 4. Before I go any further, if you get a piece of paper or look in any numerology book or maybe online even, you will see the numbers 1 to 9 because numerology works predominantly from 1 to 9. Then you get the alphabet, 1A, 2B, 3C, and so on, and you go through the alphabet. And all the numbers stay the same except for 11 and 22, and I think K is 11 and 22 is V from memory. Pardon me, I'll have a sip of tea. And just as I said, if there's something about the number, the home's number, character or energy that bothers you, you can change the energy of the house. Houses, like people, can be changed for the better. Now, looking at house number 1, my experience of what I've found and what I've read has been that this house is usually occupied by people who really like doing their own thing. I'll hold the magician up. They don't want to have to answer to anyone else. They like to, don't have to explain anything. They like to begin lots of projects. They also are usually very self-reliant and progressive in their outlook. And they are very distinctive and important, and sometimes even notorious, and you can make what that as you will, visit occupants of a house number 1. Inside the decor is often unusual as well, because I have found there's often gold and orange and olive and green, because the house number 1 is also of the energy of the sun. Sometimes people that move into this house bring about the changes that they want, and also they find that things change in their thinking because they often start doing new interests, new hobbies, start new jobs. They often get involved in interests and things that set them apart from their owners. Often people that like to run a business from home tend to often like to live in a house number 1, and sometimes they can be the conversation of the people in the street. Oh, new people have moved in, wonder what they're doing. And like as I said, a lot of people who live in a house number 1 work from home or run a business from their home, or they're professional people. So then we go to house number 2, which with house number 2, and also I also find house number 1, getting back to house number 1 quickly, house number 1 people often like to live alone. I found a lot of people in 1 houses live alone by choice and very contentedly, I might add. So that is our magician energy with that. Getting back to house number 2, ruled by the moon, this is a home where there's plenty of movement in and about, never a dull moment. Something is occurring or about to occur because it is an interesting house. House number 2 is often very homely and comfortable, often not neat as a pin because the people are busy doing other things, but always very hospitable and friendly. There's nothing ostentatious about anyone living in a number 2, and the house number 2 is often constructed solidly and endures well structurally. A lot of young people are attracted to house number 2, and it's often their very first home. But you also find house number 2 houses turn over a little bit too. Often people who deal with the public live in a 2 house. They also can tend to bring their work at home. They often are people who have an interest in astrology or spiritualism or anything occultish, tarot, and they're also down to earth with it though. I've been to a few seances in house numbers of 2 because I've known a few spiritualists that have lived in a house number 2, and it's a very successful house because you've got that 2 energy, and it's ruled by the high priestess. I'll put her up there, just check you can see that with my notes. Too low. So house number 1, the magician. House number 2, even got the structures there to show you and the different energies of the 2 houses. So with that, we also then move to house number 3. I'm going to do 3 houses today, and I'll put some notes up for you. Number 3 is the house of expansion, and often bits and pieces are added onto them. The rooms are enlarged, walls are knocked out, because extra bedrooms might be needed. Often has a lovely garden. The people who live in 3 homes or house number homes are usually very kind and understanding, but they can be a little bit reserved and quiet, very optimistic in their outlook, never short of friends, quite sociable, quite communicative, bright, imaginative and happy people. The occupants of number 3 houses also are often very spiritual or have a religious faith. Not only do they're people that also practice religion a lot too. Like they're not just not just academic with it. Plays a big part in their life. And luck also plays a big part in their lives because of their optimism. They're happy-go-lucky, and their lives usually have a very good life in a 3 house. They can be extravagant, and they do like to buy things because there is a Venus energy in it as well. The number 3 house can often be a large home, or there's always someone dropping in and staying with them, visiting, all those sorts of things. Often a family member works from home as well. When I sort of did all these observations, it was pre-pandemic, that when we all had to work from home, if you get my drift. A lot of times when I was sort of getting into looking at this, it was always professionals that would bring work from home, teachers that did extra work from home at night and things like that. But I know during pandemic and since pandemic, there's quite a lot of people working from home now, so it's not quite as odd as when I was sort of first researching it. People can feel a little bit cramped living in this house because there's always someone there, someone visiting, and it can be hard to find a little bit of privacy. And it also, a number 3 house often has people that like to buy scratchies or have a little bit of flutter on the horses, or what do you call it? Buy a lottery ticket or something, because they're very little bit happy-go-lucky with it. But that is where, I've lost my lost my screen. We have the Empress card with house number 3. Lots of nice comfort and gardens energy. So the houses I looked at today from not only the numerology was the Magician of the house number 1 energy, the High Priestess energy of house number 2, ruled by the moon, and also the Empress energy of house number 3. And not only is there a Venus energy here, there's also a Jupiter energy, which is where you get the sort of a bit happy-go-lucky energies from the people living in house number 3, where Lars was talking about wanting to have a bit of a flutter and enjoying that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I will do the next 3 houses in a couple of days, and I'll also put some notes up down the bottom, and I might be able to put some things up on my community page. So look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.